Welcome to the Elementary Information Night. Tonight we are going to talk about what it is like to transition into the elementary classroom from the primary classroom, and we have Miss Wells, Allison Wells, here to talk with us about that transition and the different things that you might see and experience in the elementary classroom. And we're going to have a time for questions later, and you can also contact Miss Wells via email if you would like later. And I will put her email up on the screen at the end of this recording so that you will have it. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Miss Wells.
Great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Wells. I'm the lower L guide at DMS. This is my first year in the role. Loving it so far. And yeah, I hope to meet your kiddos next year. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is a picture of the lower elementary classroom as it looked this afternoon. I wanted you to see it so that you could kind of look at the similarities and differences between the primary classroom where your kids are currently attending and the lower elementary classroom. Just like in the primary classroom, we have flexible seating, freedom of movement through the room. It's not set up in rows with desks like you might see in a traditional school. Lots of different seating options. We have tables meant for individual students. We have tables meant for small groups or pairs of students. We have rugs. Students can do work on the floor or to choose to sit at a table. Everything in the room is child height. So the shelves, everything is accessible to them just like it would be in the primary classroom. We really want them to feel some ownership and over the materials and the environment itself. So one thing to note is as they move into elementary, the reason we have larger tables for pairs or for group work is children are transitioning, coming out of, or right around the age of 6, they're leaving the first plane of development, entering the second plane of development. And becoming much more social creatures. They're more aware of their peers. They are drawn to them. They want to work with them. And so our environment in lower L has to accommodate that need for them to work in small groups, to work collaboratively. So hence why we have bigger tables for more children to sit at. Another thing that comes along with lower elementary is this freedom of movement that they have in the classroom comes with the added responsibility now of knowing when it's okay to move freely through the classroom and when it's more appropriate to remain at their spot and stay focused on their work. So it's part of becoming a learner and making decisions that are right for themselves and right for the community as a whole. During a work cycle, is it appropriate to race across the room to talk to your friend, or do you wait and stay kind of in your spot? So we're talking more about those kinds of choices and how it affects the classroom and themselves and their learning. We have bathrooms. Oh, I meant to tell you that on the first one. So I just wanted to say, we pay a lot of attention to their needs in terms of needing to eat, needing to take care of themselves in the bathroom, washing their hands. And so all of those things are also part of our environment. We have 2 bathrooms in the class. We do a lot of work talking about what needs to happen once you're done in the bathroom and washing hands and how to knock on the door and what to do if someone knocks on the door while you're in there, and kind of all those sort of social norms and rules about taking turns or what it means to knock quietly versus pounding on the door and that kind of stuff. So they're learning kind of how to be part of a little mini society. And believe it or not, like taking turns in the bathroom is one of those areas that they're getting comfortable with. Another area of our classroom that I believe is also in primary is we have a peace area. And we continue positive discipline at this school all the way up through middle school. And in the lower elementary, the peace area is really important for a couple of reasons. We use it for positive timeout space for when children are feeling, some really big emotions, big feelings, or they're, upset about something. They can choose to come in here and use the books and the tools and the strategies that we talk about together to, help them calm down and come back to a place of peace and being settled, to allow them to return to the classroom, peacefully. We also use the space for conflict resolution. So as children transition into the second plane and they are more social, they're also more likely to get into disagreements and conflicts with their peers over, whose turn it was, or who's going to be first in line, or which research idea we're going to follow, and, who's using the tape right now. And so they need a space to invite each other to go and work out those conflicts. And for us, the peace area is what we use to do that. And you can see on the wall, the children have made signs that they found inspiring and wanted to hang up in that area, mostly right now about peace and love. I think Valentine's Day might have had something to do with that, but they like to switch out the decorations based on how the community is feeling as a whole. One other thing I wanted to mention about the environment before I move on from pictures of the classroom is the care of the environment, the cleaning of the environment. Like everything you see here is really done by the children. All of the work that they do in primary and practical life is no longer a specific work here, like pouring work or sweeping work, that kind of stuff. Now they're using it to take care of the environment and to sort of provide for the community as a whole. So we take care of each other, and we take care of our materials, and we take care of our space using the skills that they learned in primary. So they have a very practical application once they get to lower elementary. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears a little about some of the materials that we have in the lower elementary. One of the really nice things about the transition from primary to lower elementary is that we have lots of materials on the shelves that are similar or exactly the same as what they are used to in primary. And I think for a 6-year-old entering the lower L classroom for the first time, it's comforting for them to see materials that they're already used to, they've used in the past, and they're not nervous or intimidated to take them off the shelf right away. So it's nice for them to have that sort of comforting presence, but also nice for us because they sort of already have a jumping off point. Really from day one, young children can walk into the lower L classroom if they've come from primary and have work that they know how to do, that they're confident doing because they've been doing it in primary. That being said, those same materials that were in the primary classroom that also are in the lower L classroom, they serve a new purpose by the time they get to us. For example, with the bead cabinet, which you see here on the left, mostly used in primary for linear counting from 1 to 1,000, believe it or not, and also to kind of concretely expose children to concepts like skip counting and multiples and squaring. In the lower L, we begin to move toward abstraction with those ideas, skip counting and multiples and squaring and cubing. And this intersection of the abstract mathematical idea with the concrete bead cabinet here creates these little aha moments in lower L. So it's kind of where the transition goes from it just being purely a concrete and sensorial material to, oh my goodness, I understand multiples. And that's a whole, that's a gateway into a whole new world of math for them. And on the right, I put this is the small hexagon box. It's one of our geometry materials. And in primary, this material is used, it's sensorial. It's meant to show them that different shapes can be composed by other shapes. So triangles in particular are a constructor, and they can be used to make other shapes like trapezoids and a rhombus, like you can see here. In lower elementary, we take this many steps further, and we start to learn about congruence and equivalence. And they use these to prove that, you know, this triangle and this trapezoid are in fact congruent, and I can prove it because look here, and they can rearrange the shapes and prove it sensorially, which is really, really cool. And I had to dig through my training photos for this, but I wanted to show you one other really cool thing that we can do with these materials in lower L. This is a concrete and sensorial proof of the Pythagorean theorem. If you can see in the center of this shape, there's a green right triangle. And then built off of each side of the green triangle is a hexagon. And through a variety of activities, we were able to prove that the smallest hexagon plus the medium-sized hexagon is equal to the area of the largest hexagon. So these are 6 to 9-year-olds working with the Pythagorean theorem without actually working with the Pythagorean theorem, you know. But that's kind of how these materials evolve, I guess, is what I'm trying to show you. And it even continues into upper elementary. They start to use this for area and, you know, much more detailed and abstract work with equivalence and congruency. So it's pretty incredible when you see how the same materials carry from primary all the way up to upper elementary with slightly different purpose and different levels of abstraction as they go. All right. So what you're looking at here, excuse me, is the language area of our classroom. And I'll just give you a quick tour. To the left of your screen, we have, to the far left, so far you can't actually see it, it's not in the picture, we have the metal insets, which are primary material as well. We keep them in the lower elementary for children who are still working on their pencil grip and for handwriting practice and developing those muscles that are necessary for handwriting. We also keep some sandpaper letters in the room for students, especially for students who are unfamiliar with cursive. We use that to teach them the cursive letters that correspond with the print they may be familiar with. We have the movable alphabet for students who are still using that for reading and writing. And then as you progress sort of along the left wall, we have another handwriting shelf with both print and cursive numbers and letters. Then we have a spelling shelf, and then a reading shelf, and then finally a grammar shelf. And I'm going to focus on the spelling shelf for a minute, because what I want to highlight is how each of these shelves contains work for the children that really spans abilities, right? So 6-year-olds can access the works here, and 9-year-olds can access the work here, and they're all able to work at a level that's appropriate for them and challenging for them, while still kind of working toward the same end goal. So it's really individualized. So here's an example. This is from the spelling shelf. This is we call it window spelling, and it's a work that we use. It's phonics based. Young children who are entering lower elementary are often learning how to read, write, and spell kind of simultaneously. And so this work allows them to focus on one phonics pattern at a time, and they progress through at whatever speed is comfortable for them. And I showed you here 3 different examples from 3 different levels, because I wanted you to see kind of how the demands increase as they work their way through the different levels. So the red book on the left is the short A vowel sound. So all of the words there flag, mask, bat, raft, all have that short A sound. As we move further along in the program, we get to the ung or ing or ang, those words. So like hung, hungry, stung, and rung. And then as you move further along, now we're looking at silent letters. So we have WR for wrap, wrist, rec, etc. So, but what's nice is that it's the same process, just with kind of increasingly challenging skills or phonics patterns that they can, work toward. This is an example kind of how the window spelling works. It's really cute. They do, two things every time they set it up. First, they write the pattern in the little openings on the card, and they try to read the word. And after they've tried to read the word, they look at the picture in the booklet and they decide if they got it right or not. After they've done that, they turn the card over and they write the words, and then or they look at the picture, excuse me, and then try to write the words. So a child working here would look at this picture and see seed. The word would be seed. And so they would have to decide, knowing the pattern was EE, making the E sound, they would have to figure out that it needs an S and then a D at the end to write seed. And then they can check their work by turning the card over again. They really enjoy it. It's a really nice work, and we have first graders, second graders. I have some third graders who are still working with the material and are all being challenged right where they need to be. And what's nice is when they graduate from window spelling, we have other spelling materials for them. We also have a couple pictures back. This tall cabinet over here, the grammar skyscraper, which has other word study resources in it. There are suffixes and prefixes, compound words, all that kind of stuff. So for kids who have really gotten to the end of the lower L spelling sequence, they can start to study roots and parts of words and other aspects of language. There's alphabetical order, all that kind of stuff in there. So there's really something for everyone, and it's available to everyone. So if we have first graders coming in who don't need window spelling because they're already spelling, well above grade level, we have other options for them, and they are, kind of placed wherever is most appropriate for them. In our math area, we have a variety of materials, just like in the primary. This picture doesn't show the shelf with the golden bead material and the stamp game material, but those are also available to them. What's nice about the math sequence in Montessori is that students are working on the same 4 operations with 4 to 7 digit numbers throughout their time working with these materials. And they just cycle through them as they move from one material to the next. The work becomes more abstract as they go. Stamp game, they're manipulating every single 10 and unit and 1,000 and 100 to build their numbers, to getting all the way to bead frame or checkerboard, where it's a far more abstract material, and they're having to remember that like this bead of 3 is actually 3,000 because it's in the thousands place, or it's on the thousands square. So the work becomes more challenging and more abstract, but it's nice that we still have these hands-on materials for them to really absorb the concepts that they're learning. And everyone's everywhere on this. You walk into the room and you've got some kids on bead frame and some kids on stamp game and some kids on test tubes, and everybody just gets so used to everybody doing all the things all the time that no one's feeling like, wait, I'm doing this, but he's doing that and I should be doing that. There's really none of that. It's just everyone is so used to seeing everyone do what they do and do what they need that it's just normal for us. And that's a really nice thing, to take that kind of pressure and self-consciousness out of the picture for kids, especially in, crucial areas like language and math. Okay. Next sort of lower elementary that I wanted to share with you is probably arguably the biggest, and it's cosmic education. And cosmic education is a term coined by Maria Montessori, and it's essentially, it's the story of the interconnectedness of all things. And our goal through cosmic education is to help children answer the question, who am I? And as part of that, where do I come from and why am I here? So to do that, we tell them stories. We have 5 great stories, starting with the birth of the universe, to the coming of life on this planet, to the coming of humans on this planet, and then the great human achievements of language and math. And those stories provide the framework for all of the cultural studies that we do in lower elementary. That's geography, history, biology, other sciences, and it inspires the kids. They love the story. I mean, kids love being told stories anyway, but these stories kind of create this sense of wonder, and it really speaks to their growing imagination at this age and their ability to think more abstractly and to think about the world outside of their classroom or the world outside of their house or their town, because that's what this age child is ready for. They want to know what's out there, and they want to know how they fit into that. And so we tell them stories of like the coral who helped to solve the salt crisis in the sea, and that was their purpose, or that is their purpose on this planet. And what's your purpose? What's humans' task here on Earth? And it's really lovely having those conversations with young children, because they think more seriously about those kinds of questions than you might imagine. So the pictures you see here, I put a kind of a sample of works and activities that have happened in this area just this year. This is a shelf showing the clock of eons. This shows from the time the planet Earth was created to now, kind of what eras or eons have existed and what was happening at that time. So that's there, and down here we're currently studying composition of the Earth, and the kids got to make clay models showing the core and the mantle and the crust. I have a child down here who's studying parts of seaweed. We were learning about the 5 kingdoms, and so we were studying seaweed as an example of the Protactista. This child is doing some animal research, so that's a big thing for kids at this age. Research of all kinds is very exciting for them. I find that animal research in particular with my kiddos is always popular. Big cats seem hugely popular. And then this group over here they're putting together a collage of things that humans need to survive. This is part of our conversation on fundamental needs of humans, and helping them to recognize that beyond just like food, water, shelter, transportation, we also need things like companionship and humor and things that feed our soul in addition to our body, because that's what makes us human. So, okay. Normally I would stop here for questions, but I'm just gonna charge through. You can see if you have questions at the end. So I apologize for all the talking. So at this point, hopefully you're thinking, wow, there's a lot going on in this classroom. How will my child know what they should be doing and when? And that's where work plans come in. In the lower elementary, the children ages 6 to 9 are learning how to learn. They're learning how to become learners. And this is a really important time to start teaching them those kind of executive functioning skills and how to manage their time and how to sort of track, where they're spending their time and where they might need to spend more time. So this picture you see here is an example that I'm using right now with most of my first graders. And this is a picture work plan being used, simply because, when they're not reading and writing, when they're not strong with their reading and writing yet, the pictures are a great support for them. And we found that this sort of bingo style work plan where they could kind of be presented with all of their choices. And I add to it every week. So for example, country research wasn't on there before, but it's on there now because we are beginning our planning for Cultural Day, which is a big event that we have in the spring. Every child studies a country and presents, makes a presentation to parents and members of the community, and they get very excited about it. So, every week based on lessons that they're having, I will come in and update their picture chart so that they know kind of what the new expectations are or the new tasks, for them. But then they know, okay, I can see that I have to do math process 4 times this week. So I know I don't have to do it today on Monday, but I do have to start it on Tuesday if I want to get to all 4. And as they go through the work, they simply cross it out as they go. I have lots of kids who come in the morning, they sit and look at their work plan, and they circle, 3 to 4 things that they're planning to get done that day. And then I just keep an eye on them, and over the course of the morning, as they finish each thing, they simply cross it out or will scribble in the box to note that they have finished it. So this seems to be working really well for my youngest students right now, and keeps them on track. A slightly more abstract version or sophisticated version of that would be something like this, where this piece of paper could be cut in half so that they're only looking at one day at a time. They can make a little booklet with it, and I've gone ahead and pre-typed in some of the things that are required daily, or follow-up items that they should be thinking about every day. And then also there are spaces for them to add their choice work in each of the areas of the classroom. So this is one that some of the first graders use, the ones who are more independent with their planning or are stronger readers and writers and can work with a plan like this. It's kind of hard to see, but this plan over here on the left is one that my 3rd graders and most of my 2nd graders are currently following right now. And they make the plan on Monday and then check things off as they go by Friday. So here they know that they have to do math process work. It's really hard to see, but there's a little ×4 right there. So they know that they have 5 spaces throughout the week, and that 4 of those spaces need to have math work planned. For their math facts, they're required to do it 3 times a week. So they decide what 3 days they're going to do it. Daily spelling is every day. And then some of these other things, there's writing journal they do twice, handwriting they do twice, and so on. Any of these works that say follow-up, so geometry follow-up or grammar follow-up, and there's just sort of one long space, that is where they would come to this board, which we keep on the wall near their work slot. And each week I record any lessons that they've had and the follow-up work that was assigned as part of that lesson. So for example, for my 3rd graders, they had a geometry lesson recently where we talked about multiplying angles, and their follow-up work is to basically practice with that in whatever format they choose. They could make a poster, they could make a book, but they had to do some angle multiplication and show me that in a way that appealed to them. So what they would write on their plan for geometry follow-up is multiplying angles, and that has to be done by the end of the week. So they would, do that when they choose to do it. And one thing that we, always remind them is that they can choose when they want to do their work. They can't choose if they want to do their work. So checking in with lower L students is really important. I check in with them on Mondays as they're making their work plan. I kind of make the rounds throughout the classroom and just, we'll check off certain kiddos and just take a peek and say, I noticed you didn't put language here. Can we find a language work that you'd like to do today or tomorrow? And just kind of help them fill in any gaps on their plans. And then I like to check in with them again on Wednesday, Thursday, kind of time frame to see how they're doing with their goals that they set at the beginning of the week. And if they're not quite on track to finish or get where they want to get, then we pivot and adjust goals as needed or find the time for them to accomplish those goals. I have found that when it's a conversation and they sort of notice like, ooh, it's Wednesday and I haven't done any math yet, that when they have that realization, it's sort of, oh yeah, I really need to get to that. I'm avoiding math right now, so I'm going to make sure I prioritize that tomorrow. That seems to work better for this age group than saying, me just coming to them and saying, you haven't done math in a week. It's time to do math, like now. So helping them to realize where they're spending their time and where they could, how they can make some changes to fit other areas in is really important. I hear a doorbell. And that's, I think, the end of my presentation. It is. And so now I would say, are there any questions? And I hope there are, and I would be happy to answer them.
Mm-hmm. And again, for those of you who are watching later, I will put Allie's email address on the screen so that you can see it. Thank you so much, Miss Wells, for sharing about the lower elementary. It was lovely to see, and you did a really nice job explaining it. And I kind of want to be a kid in the classroom. So yeah,
anytime.
Yep. So I'm gonna stop the recording now, and then we can have a time for questions, and you guys can email in questions also. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching.